So if you're in that type of relationship and it's continual lying, set boundaries, but keep consequences. A narcissist lies. Now that's pretty obvious, and that's pretty common for most people to be like, yeah, like that makes sense. Be like, how do they actually get to the place where they believe their lies? Well, there's the aspect of you tell a lie enough, then it eventually becomes truth, or it eventually seems like reality for that person. And you have a lot of narcissists over a period of time that they believe, and they start thinking like, hey, this is my new reality. This is the reality that I'm actually engaged in or that I believe in. And as a result, you see a lot of interactions where you can be telling them one thing and they're completely lying, but it doesn't seem like they are because they believe the lie. Like they believe it so much that they think it's reality, that they think it's truth. Now you have the aspect that there is a lot of times when the narcissist does know that they're lying. But in that aspect, it's easier to lie and gaslight and manipulate another person than it is for that narcissist in the moment to take accountability, have to acknowledge shame and guilt over what happened, and then try to figure out a way to grow and be able to change. That doesn't happen. So as a result, they lie, they manipulate, they gaslight, and they try to get away from it as quick as possible. So typically you'll have a narcissist that will just easily or quickly lie about anything and everything. Like you'd be amazed at some of the examples that people have of the narcissist lying from a cheating relationship all the way down to what type of burrito they just ate. Like literally it becomes something that's like ingrained, and it's almost like habitual of like the constant lying to themselves, to others, to relationships, to jobs, to bosses, to families, whatever it is, you'll see them lie more and more and more and more. And it just becomes to a place where it's just like instinctual. It's just habitual of like, hey, this happened, lie, this happened, lie, this happened, lie. And you might think like, hey, doesn't it get really crazy sometimes to try to be able to keep it all straight? And the answer is yes. Like that's why sometimes you'll have different moments of like episodes of like rage, or like all of a sudden maybe like crying or like breaking down or like different things like that, because there's different times where all the strands of reality are coming at the narcissist or the person who's lying so much that it can get overwhelming and be like, I don't even know what's true anymore. I don't even know what's right anymore. I don't even know what's going on. You see this sometimes with people who've been lying constantly for years, and especially when who've been using like gaslighting to manipulate other people, or what I would say sometimes in narcissism is where they end up like gaslighting themselves, is they start developing at times even like gaps in their memory. Now, I'm not saying like, oh, they didn't just remember that argument, but I'm saying sometimes it gets to the place of where different places in their mind are almost like blackouts. Not because that memory doesn't exist, but because they've lied about it so much, or they've continued the habit of lying so much that all of a sudden they can't remember a certain thing, or how they remember it is completely different. And that's the idea when they verbalize it of rewriting history and kind of changing it. So I had someone the other day who was asking me, they were like, but how can they justify the lying? And I was like, well, honestly, like when I try to break it down as like analytically as possible and try to be able to like think through it like piece by piece, like the easiest way to lie is to get to a place where you don't think you're lying, where you think you're telling the truth. And so with a narcissist, like whether you want to call it disassociation or like disconnecting, like what they'll do is they'll build two different universes, or 3 or 4 or 5 kind of thing. So you have like in one sense like reality, like what you and I know to be true, like facts, and then you have the fantasy that the narcissist builds of like that other relationship, that other job, that other purpose, like whatever it might be. And so you typically have like another fantasy world of a different relationship. So you have reality, and then you have a different fantasy world of relationship. And so what happens is you have the narcissist in reality that's saying, hey, this is what's happening, okay? And then there's a quick switch. And some of you might have seen it or experienced it with the quick switch when they walk out the door, when they step into someone else's life, when they flip the phone and they're completely engaged with someone else. So there's a quick switch into a different reality, okay? And in this reality, you tell the truth as much as possible. And then in this reality, you tell the truth as much as possible. But the difference is when you look at both those realities from a crisscross standpoint, both realities are actually lying to each other. So the narcissist will be married to someone and be telling the other person like, oh, we're getting a divorce, or oh, like we're actually not together, or oh, we're actually separated. Then they'll be with this person and they'll be like, oh, like this person is just someone that I used to know. Like this person is just an old friend or whatever. And you start having lies upon lies upon lies that go back and forth. But sometimes the way that they keep those straight is in that reality, they fashion that reality, they fashion that facade to facilitate the lies that they have. So in this reality, I act this way. I'm this type of person. I'm caring. I'm whatever, love bombing in this aspect. And so I'm going to act in character for as long as I can, as much as I can, until the lies start falling, till the mask starts slipping, till people start saying like, hey, there's actually something going on besides this facade that I've made. And then all of a sudden, I'll switch back over to actual reality, or like the different reality that I've created, and then I'm trying to be like honest and connected and try to engage with people on a certain level to be able to convince them, hey, I'm this way. So it's almost like the narcissist gets to the place at times where they can gaslight themselves so much that they try to disconnect it completely. So when I'm in this reality, I tell the truth, which is just a bunch of lies, and then over here I tell the truth, which is just a bunch of lies. But it goes back and forth to the point where the narcissist starts gaslighting themselves of like, no, like this actually happened. I'm the victim. I'm this. Like this revolves around me. Like I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for this person, for this reason, for this excuse, all this type of stuff. And they end up trying to fabricate a story that's going to keep them safe in that false reality. And typically how they're going to do that is they're going to lie. And you'll see those lies happen over and over and over and over again. Now, some people are like, okay, well, they're just habitual liars. Like, yes, a lot of times they are. A lot of times it's instinctual for them just to lie because they've grown up in maybe an abusive household, or they've grown up in a household that didn't allow them to actually process their feelings or their thoughts or their opinions or anything like that. So anything that popped up had to be disregarded, had to be pushed down, had to be lied about, had to be twisted or manipulated because it either wasn't safe or it wasn't ever accessible for them to be able to share emotions or thoughts or things like that. Now, I'm not saying that to have everybody be like, oh, like the poor narcissist. Like, I'm not trying to create a case for that. I'm just trying to say, like, hey, this is where it typically comes from. This is how a lot of times it's developed, where they start lying as a form of like self-preservation, and then they get to a point where they start lying about everything, and then they get to the point where those lies have engulfed them so much that it's multiple realities, like 5 different realities, 5 different people, like you name it. You'll see a whole lot of different things pop up because that lying becomes a huge aspect that, like I said, just completely like engulfs their personality, their persona, everything that's going on, and all they do is just lie, lie, and lie. If you're with this type of person and you've seen habitual lying, where they're not changing, they're not getting better, you've brought it up, you've confronted them, you've gone to counseling. Don't go to with a narcissist, go separately. But you've gone to different things, you've tried different things, like whatever it might be, and this person isn't changing. You need to make sure you're having some boundaries and consequences in place. Like if you're not willing to actually tell the truth in this relationship, then we're going to set the boundary of like, if you don't tell the truth, then there's no point in this relationship, because a relationship and love has to be built on trust. You can't build a relationship on a bed of lies. If you do, it's always going to fall apart because there's nothing stable for it to stand on. There's nothing stable for it to actually support a relationship that's concerned about each other, that's loving, that's caring about the other person. So if you're in that type of relationship and it's continual lying, set boundaries, but keep consequences. And make sure they understand, like, hey, this is my boundary. If you keep breaking it, this is what's going to happen. And then when it happens, you have to act on it. If you don't act on it, then it just means typically you're a pushover to the narcissist, and they're going to keep doing it. They're going to keep abusing you because they know they can get away with it. And they know in long term it won't matter because you'll still come back. You'll still do X, Y, and Z because of all that. Anyways, that's just my talk about lies. There's like a million more things I feel like I could say about lies. If you had this type of experience, if you had aspects of your narcissism or different things like that where your narcissist like was lying to you, like leave some comments. Like, let people know like what you struggled with, because you'll find out the more you communicate about it, the more people actually have seen, experienced the same things that you're going through, and those lies and those gaslighting and manipulation don't make you crazy. And honestly, a lot of times I have to tell people in one-on-ones like, hey, what you're going through in this type of relationship is actually normal. And it's sad to say a lot of times it's normal, but I try to have people understand, because otherwise they come into it and they're like, oh, I feel crazy for everything that they put me through. And then they tell me everything that they put them through. And I'm like, no, you're not crazy. You've just been abused. And so we try to work to a place to get healing and growth and change. If you like what you see here, please subscribe. Share this video with someone who maybe you think needs to hear it today. Follow me on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. Would love to interact with you there. If you're listening on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts, just give the episode a rating, just so we can try to spread the news about narcissism and also how to provide healing, growth, and change in people's lives.